What if your seed beads could bloom into tiny vintage roses? Well, today I'm turning these colors from the Beads of the Month Club into a delicate floral necklace. Hi there, I'm Nina. I'm a pharmacist turned jewelry designer. I started creating jewelry to unwind, and now I share tutorials to help others do the same. In this video, I'll show you how to bead soft rose-like flowers with all 8 colors from this month's box, and then connect them with a garden-inspired green color. So let's get started. Alright, so let's get started. So this is a sample of the necklace. I went ahead and did just a little bit of it just to make sure it was going to work out good. So you're going to need 3 of your colors here. I'm going to have down in the description down below what colors I'm using in each one of these petals or each one of these flowers, so that way you know which one's going to be your center color, which is going to be this one on the current one that we're going to do, and your petal color, which is going to be this one that's going to look similar to this guy over here. So I'll have that all listed down in the description below. So to start your flower, we're going to start off with our inner color, which in this one is going to be the silver lined pink, and I'm picking up 5 of the silver lined pink. We're going to bring that down to the end of the thread until you have a comfortable amount to be able to hold on to. Then we're going to go back through just that first bead. And now we're going to do some peyote stitch. We're going to add 5 more beads to the center, so each the center color. So we're coming out of that first bead, we picked up a bead, and then we're going to go through the next one. I think I said peyote stitch. I don't think that's peyote stitch. It might be. No, it's not. I don't know. We're doing this. Good gracious. This is what we're doing. So we added that extra bead there, so it's kind of sticking out like a picot. Pick up another bead. You're coming out of this bead right here. We're going to go through the next one. So basically by the time you add these 5 beads, coming out of this one right here, picked up a bead, go through the next one. When you add these 5 beads around the edge, you're going to end up with something that looks like a 5-point star. And then this is number 4. And then do the same thing to get your 5th bead on there. Just trying to keep all of this in frame. And when you go and put your 5th bead on, you're going through that first bead that we went through. And then when I get my nails and fingers out of the way, now you have your little 5-point star. There you go. Now it's focusing. So now we need to get a few extra beads in between the points of the star in order to make it a little bit more easier to be able to add your petals to it. So go ahead and go through that first bead that we added on the second row. Now we're going to pick up 2 beads. These are all still the inner color, the silver lined color. So we're going to pick up 2 beads, some coming out of that topmost point bead here. I'm going to go through the next one in line that's sticking out. Yeah, this is peyote. It's been a long day at work. Couldn't think, not thinking right. So pick up 2 more beads, go through the next one, and so on and so forth until you get to the other side. And then I'll show you how to do one of the petals, and then I'll break away and have you finish the other 4 petals. I'll get you started on the second petal, but then I'll break away and get you and let you finish the other 4 petals, so you don't have to sit there and watch me do it the whole time. So now I'm adding my last of my 2 beads. So I'm going back through that first original bead, doing that first, and then now you have something that looks like this. So now we need to get ready to start adding our petals. So we need to go back through the first 2 beads that we just added on this last row. So go ahead and go through those 2 beads. And now we're going to start adding our petals. Now each of our roses is going to have 3 petals on each of these 5 sections. So the first petal is going to be 5 seed beads. So just pick up 5 seed beads of your petal color, whichever petal color you're using. We're coming out of the right hand side of those 2 beads of the inner color there. We're going to go back through and create a loop and go back through the left hand side of those 2 beads. Just like that. Now when you have that loop created, I would suggest to try to push that loop inwards and just hold it with your thumb. So that way, when you add your second layer of petals on this side, it's going to be a total of 7 beads. So now you have 7 beads, and you do the same thing. Go back through those 2 same beads in the inner bead, or the inner portion of the flower, and create another loop like that. Do the same thing again. Fold that loop inside, and it may be a little bit difficult to hold, but you can do it. And then do your last petal, which is going to be 9 beads. So now you have 9 beads on your needle, and then go back through those 2 seed beads on the inner portion one more time. And then now you have your 3 layers of your petal on the first little portion done. So now when I flip this over to the back to make it a little bit easier to see, this is the first 2 beads that we're coming out of right here. We need to get to these 2 beads right here, but there's a large gap in between those 2. So we're going to pick up one of our inner colors again, which is the silver lined, and then we're going to move on to the next 2 beads here in line. Now I'm going to flip this back to the front again. Now we're set up to where we can start our 3 petals again. So pick up 5 beads, and then we want to go through those 2 beads only that we added on that last row. So this is the bead that we just added to get from this petal to over here to start your next petal, which is this bead right here. So these 2 beads are the ones that we want to go back through again. And those 2 right there. And then that gets your first little petal on. So then just continue on and add your 7 and your 9. And if you didn't notice then, all my petals were kind of all a little wonky and not shaped correctly. If you need to, you can always play with it and get it shaped in the way that you want it. It doesn't have to be perfect because, you know, rose petals, as we all know, are not always perfect and everything. So go ahead and complete the other 4 sections, so a total of 5 sections. Don't forget to add that extra little seed bead when you jump from this portion right here to the first portion again. I'll come back and I'll show you what I mean on that, just in case you're confused with that. But don't forget to add that bead. So I'll meet you back in just a second, and we'll finish off this rose and get started to get to our next rose. Alright, so here is our cute little rose that is almost complete. She's looking pretty cute. Alright, so this is that one bead that I was talking about at the end of the last clip. See how we still have that gap in between where our last petal is at and then where our first petal is at? There's a little bit of a gap there. So that's the bead that I was talking about, don't forget. So go ahead and put that on, and then continue through those next 2 seed beads as if we were going to add another petal. So that's going to be the first petal that we added. So we're going to continue through those beads that we added our first petal on. Then, to get ready for the next step and add our little vine portion to our necklace, we're going to go ahead and go through that bead that we put on in between the first and the second petal right there, that corner bead. Now we're going to pick up 4 of our vine color, or the green color, whichever color that you choose. And if you don't have the green, you can always use one of the other colors of the seed beads that came in the kit too. You can always do that if you like. So now I'm holding it in this way where I have the thread coming out of the bead this is the same bead that I was coming out of, but now it's down here on the bottom. The reason why I'm doing that is that I need to try to find something that's going to be kind of like in line with each other like this. So I'm coming out of this bead here. I want to go to this bead right here, which is actually one of the first 5 seed beads that we added in the first round. So if you look at it, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 beads right here that are on the first round. Your second round that we added was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then up here is where we added the 2. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have the 5 that are in between. The one that we're coming out of currently, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we want to go to the first round of the 5 and then go through that bead. So it's going to look like that. I hope that's in focus. There we go. I'm holding it there just in case, making sure that it's in focus. So then that puts the beads like that. I'm flipping into my hand just because it's easier to go through. I'm going to go back through those 4 beads again, just like that, and then come back out. I'm not going to go back through this bead down here because this is where we're going to add our vine now. So now I'm going to add 31 seed beads, and it really wasn't any rhyme or reason as to why I chose 31. I just put a bunch of beads on my on my needle until I was happy with the length in between the flowers, and then it just happened to be, I think it ended up being like 28 or something, or 29, something like that. I was like, well, 31 would make kind of a more even number because we just added 4 beads here, so it ends up being 35 beads in between each flower. I don't know. You don't have to add 31 if you don't want to. That's just what I chose to do. So now you have your 31 on there, and I forgot to get my other color beads out. So your next flower is going to be the next color in line. So the pinkish orange is now going to be off to the side. The silver lined is now going to become my petal color on my next one. And then my yellow color, which I believe is a yellow lined crystal if I remember correctly, is going to become my inner color. So now to get started with that petal, we already have the 31 beads on there from the green, so we're just going to pick up 5 of our yellow, which is our next inner color. So now you have 5 on there. There you go. And then just pull that down to your green. Now what you want to do is just kind of keep your thread a little tight in your finger like that. You can wrap it around your finger if you need to, and then just go back through that first bead, that first yellow bead again. And then now we're set up to do the same thing that we did in the previous round, where we start, pick up a bead, go through the next of those 5 in line, and it makes it stick out in the picot, and then so on and so forth. So I will get this flower done, and I'm probably going to run out of thread, so I'm probably going to have to add thread on this. I was trying to use a smaller amount of thread so it wasn't so hard for you to watch me pull thread through all the time. But I will finish this flower, and then I will come back because on this flower it's going to be slightly different as to how to add the green 4 beads on the back of your flower to make sure everything stays in basically a good little line. So I'm going to finish this petal out, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how to add those 4 beads on the back of the second flower, and then that'll be the same thing that you'll do for the rest of the necklace until we get back to the other side. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how to finish that part off. So I'll see you back in a second. So I'm almost done with my second flower. So here is the second rose, what it looks like. Very cute. I love these little things. Alright, so I'm coming out of that last petal again, right in here. So I need to add my last seed bead. So I'm going to add my last little seed bead to connect the 5th petal to the 1st petal. And then if I catch on to that I guess connector bead would be the best way of saying it, in between the two. That's perfectly fine. Now on the first petal, or the first rose, this is where we ended up adding our 4 seed beads, was right here. But I want to kind of keep this going in line, where it ends up being a straight line like this in the back of the flower. So in order to do that, we're coming out of this corner bead here, this connector bead to connect the petals. We're coming out of this one, but I want to be coming out of this one in order to add our 4 seed beads back here. So you just follow your thread path and just go through, if you can, go through the 2 seed beads for the next petal, and then you would come out through your next connector bead in between the 2 petals. And then just be careful when you're pulling the thread, because it'll get caught on some of the petals sometimes and things like that, so just be careful. Just take your time with it. And then so now I'm coming out of that bottom bead down here, or at least that's how I have it sitting right now. And then we're going to add our 4 seed beads, and then our bead that we round out through basically is going to be this one right here that is sitting right next to the vine already. And sometimes this bead can get a little tight, so sometimes it's a little hard. Sometimes you can get through it in this direction, sometimes I have to go through it in this direction. It kind of just depends on which way that your needle is going to allow it to go through. So just take your time with it and just wiggle your needle through. You don't want to break your beads. So now that I got it through there, and flip it in my hand just to make it a little easier to pull the thread through. And then when you pull it down, it's going to look something similar to that. Now you're going to have a little bit of a gap in between the 4 beads that we added and then the 31 that's over here off to this side. It's perfectly fine, because we're going to go through this whole strand of green beads one more time with at least one more thread path. I always like to try to put multiple thread paths through my beads, if at all possible. Sometimes in some designs and things like that, it's just not possible for you to go back through it again, just because it would just make it a really long tutorial and things like that. So I try to do that whenever I can. So now we're just going to go back through those 4 seed beads one more time, and then that gets us set up to where we can add our 31 green beads again, and then start your next rows. So go ahead and complete this portion where we do our second rows. For the remainder of however many roses that you're going to want to do. I'm going to end up doing, I think it's 17 roses if I remember correctly. So I will come back when I get done with my other side of my rose of my necklace, because my necklace started off with these 2. I'm going to go through all the different colors and then come back and start repeating on the opposite side. So I will come back and show you how to complete this necklace to where we can join these 2 ends together. And this necklace will actually be large enough to where you can slip over your head. So I'll meet you back in a few minutes and we'll get this thing finished. Alright, so we're almost done with our necklace. I've got it all jumbled up right here off to this side and everything. Looking pretty, looking cute. Alright, so this is where I am sitting at the moment. This would be the last flower that you're going to add. Now your flower on the back is going to look a little bit different than this one. You will not have those last 4 seed beads sitting right here. I've already added my 4 seed beads because I started on this end down here, made half the necklace to make sure it was going to look right and feel correct and everything before I started recording the video. And then this is where I picked up and started showing you how to actually do the flowers and everything. So these 2 flowers I made with you earlier in the video, and then I just connected it to the rest of the necklace that I've already done. So this is going to look a little bit different for yours. You're not going to have those last 4 seed beads. So in this next step, you're going to have to add those 4 seed beads. So that's all you do, just add your 4 seed beads. You would typically go through this bead right here and then go back through those 4 seed beads and then continue on to add on your next flower However, we're going to connect this first pink flower to this first pink flower. So we're going to connect the two. So in order to do that, add your 4 beads on there, continue through that bead that's right here on your flower, on the base of your flower, but don't go back through the 4 beads again. Go ahead and add your 31 beads to your thread and needle. And then after that, it's pretty simple. You just pick up the other end of your necklace and just go straight through the how many are these? 35 beads on this side. And then now you have a necklace that is going to be completely around and not have a clasp on it. So like I always say in a lot of my videos, I tend to like to have at least 2 thread paths through just about every single bead, if that is possible. This part you don't have to do. You can leave it as is, you can tie off your ends and be done. Or you could just continue on like I am, and I'm going to connect each one of these green lines of beads, because I'm coming up to a space right now where we have just that little bit of a space behind the flower right there. So I'm going to connect those with another bead. So like I said, you don't have to do this part if you don't want to. You're coming out of the one side, go ahead and add a bead, and then continue on. I do it this way so that way I can get 2 thread paths through my beads and make sure there's at least 2. I just do that for stability, for my jewelry and everything. And then that's what it would look like on the back when you add your extra bead there. So that's all you do on this last step. You add your 4 beads, then you add the 35 or the 31 beads to total 35, and then connect it to the other end that you've already started with, and then go through all of your beads one more time, adding that extra bead on the back of each one of the flowers if you would like, and then tie off your threads, and then you're done. You have a cute little necklace already made. Y'all, this necklace I think has turned out so cute with all the different colors and the beads and everything, how they come together and they look like little heirloom roses and everything. So I really think this has turned out to be a really cute necklace. I think I'm going to call it Heirloom Petals. So if you'd like to give this necklace a try, I've added a full list of materials down in the description, as well as links to some of the materials if you need to purchase them. That way you can follow along with me. And if you're looking for more jewelry tutorials like this one, check out my playlist below that I have in the description. I've got plenty more ideas to inspire your next project. I'll see y'all in the next video, everyone. Bye now.